Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to be your astrologer this week. Happy Tuesday. I am back at it with yet another video, and we're going to be taking a preview look at the up and coming Mercury in Libra transit. Now don't forget to give me a thumbs up and like this video. Consider sharing on your socials and make sure you hit that subscription button below. Click the bell button so you're alerted as to when I have new videos on the channel. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Also, guys, leave me comments. I want to hear how this is kind of materializing for you. Any interaction with the channel helps the channel grow. And I'm excited to be back to talk about this transit because, well, I think we all could use a little bit of a break from some of the communication challenges that we have been experiencing the last couple of weeks while Mercury has been in Virgo. So we're going to talk all things Mercury in Libra. Mercury is going to be moving through the sign of Libra from September 18th, and it's going to stay there until October 6th, 2025. Now, I'm Central Time here in Texas, so it is going to be happening quite early in the morning. So definitely check your time zones and kind of adjust accordingly. But this is a relatively quick transit. You know, we see Mercury spend a couple of weeks in any particular sign, depending on its Mercury retrograde period. So as for who this is going to be impacting the most, if you happen to be a Gemini, Virgo, or Libra rising, you're going to be feeling the effects of this transit. Gemini and Virgo, you guys are ruled by Mercury, so you're going to want to see where Mercury is moving in your natal chart. And Libra, Mercury is going to be moving through your sign. Now, if you guys stay tuned to the end of the video, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs and we'll talk all about my thoughts, predictions, and tips to make the most of this transit. I also cover this in my September horoscopes. Now, themes for Mercury in Libra, you know, just in a nutshell, you know, when we think about Mercury, this is a planet that is connected to communication. So think things like phones, contracts, negotiation, travel, business. And also it's about our mental kind of processes as well as anything kind of connected to intellect. So it's going to be governing how we think, and it's also going to be talking about how we speak, how we learn, and how we exchange information. So, you know, Mercury is connected to things like short distance trips. It's also connected to commerce as well as siblings and everyday problem solving. Now, in mythology, Mercury is kind of connected to the messenger of the gods. So it's symbolizing that kind of divine kind of messages that we get, anything connecting to quick wit and being a little bit more adaptable as well as curious. Now, the sign that Mercury is going to be moving through is going to flavor the way that we're going to connect and communicate with other people. And it's moving through, obviously, Libra, the seventh sign of the Zodiac, cardinal air ruled by Venus. So off the bat, this should make for much more pleasant communications with other people. This is obviously, you know, with Mercury and Libra, a transit that's really focusing on trying to build bridges, right? This is about trying to harmonize and kind of work with other people and really focus on, kind of like a positive back and forth and kind of discourse. Now, it can also be bringing better communications, you know, feeling like there's better intellectual balance as well as social diplomacy. Now, when Mercury's in this sign, we become a little bit more tactful with our words, right? We want it to sound more pleasant. We want it to be also, you know, exchanging ideas and information with other people. Libra always encourages us to kind of like work with others. So in this sign, it's going to be about seeking fairness in, you know, debates or negotiations, trying to build on better communications in our one-on-one relationships. So with people like our spouses, our romantic partners, our clients, our business partners, our therapists. But the one thing that you want to think about as Mercury goes through this sign is that Libra is a sign that can be a little indecisive. So we can see that there can be some sense of kind of balancing things out or weighing things out, and also kind of feeling like we have to weigh both sides of an issue and we have to kind of talk or debate about it. We try to do it in, like I said, a diplomatic manner. So I do expect smoother conversations in relationships and also a sense of like heightened appreciation for aesthetic ideas. It's great for people who are kind of creative writers or people who are involved in the arts, and also a push towards collaborative thinking. And we're trying to do that over solo analysis, right? Libra is kind of the polarity point to Aries, where we have seen, you know, Saturn moving through recently, Neptune moving through, and Chiron is there as well. So we're going to be seeing where we can almost feel isolated or feel like an outsider We could feel separate. We could feel wounded. We could deal with, health issues or potentially even, mental issues with Saturn and Neptune that's been in this sign. And now we're kind of trying to build these bridges and we're trying to connect with others. So as we go through this particular transit, I do think that Venus is going to be something that's going to be important to watch. And what you will see is when the Mercury and Libra transit begins, Venus is going to be moving through Leo. She's kind of going through the final moments of Leo, and she's going to spend most of her time actually moving through Virgo. Now, if you guys caught my Venus in Virgo video, I talked about it in my recent astro weather, but I talk about the pros and cons, and that this is generally a transit where we're working out the kinks in relationships. We're cleaning things up. We're kind of airing out some of our issues. And I think that that's going to be interesting to watch. We're going to see mutual reception between Mercury and Venus. So they're going to be kind of representing some of the same themes, even though they're not making direct aspects to one another. And the best way to kind of iron out some of these relational issues is to what? Get it out in the open, get it out in the air, right? Libra. And that's one of the positive, I think, sides of Libra and 7th house energy is that it gets a reputation for, being too people-pleasing or too indecisive or too back and forth or too surfacey, right? Because Libra can almost represent like the mask that we wear. But I think that Libra doesn't get enough credit for wanting to kind of stand up and wanting to say, hey, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. Remember, we're dealing with the scales here. So it's going to be about balance. It's going to be about standing up for ourselves, confronting other people, but doing it in a way that's classy, doing it in a way that is not combative or confrontational. So Libra is this air sign ruled by Venus. We'll watch Venus go through Virgo. We'll continue to watch Mercury go through a Venetian sign. And it's going to bring up this theme of, balance and harmony in relationships. And you're going to hear a lot about relationship conversations. We're going to hear a lot about justice. We're going to hear a lot about fairness. And obviously this is a sign that is not just connected to romantic relationships, it's connected to business and social relationships as well. And I really feel like Libra energy encourages compromise, and it does it in a very elegant way. And I think that it's because Libra is able to kind of see multiple perspectives. And obviously sometimes we can see that indecisiveness, and we can also see that if we're too focused on relationships or people pleasing or trying to keep the peace, then, it's leading almost to avoidance of conflict or, over-reliance on other people's opinions. So that's something that we can kind of see as well. Now, as you guys know, the South Node is in Virgo. So Mercury transits are really important to kind of watch because this is going to add a little bit more of a flair where, yes, we are, trying to initiate through a cardinal sign new ways of communicating. But by the same token, the South Node is representing what's happened in the past, what we're kind of getting rid of, what we're cleaning up, clearing out. And it can mean that this is definitely tied to the past. There can be a lot of past things that are kind of coming up. And this will be moving second house to Virgo. So I think there's going to be a lot of people going, I no longer feel like I want or need this thing, or I'm willing to, really prioritize this relationship, or you're really thinking about things from a much more kind of aesthetic perspective. So the South Node has been in Virgo, since January of 2025. And, we watch Mercury and the aspects that it makes, and it has ties to that South Node. So there is still themes of release of karmic lessons revolving around analysis, perfectionism, self-criticism in relationships, and how this can also impact or affect relationships. Now, Mercury in Libra is helping us really, I think, work through and let go some of this kind of like nitpicky behavior, maybe by encouraging us to have like a much more balanced relational approach. And we're really shifting away from fixing, everything to collaborating, asking for help, giving positive feedback, asking for perspective, and bringing in relationships and opening up conversations to create more balance, harmony, as well as better habits in our life. So I think that that's going to be a wonderful kind of, aspect. I also look at Uranus and Gemini. Obviously, this is another mercurial sign, and Mercury is going to be governing and kind of impacting some of the things that's happening as Uranus is kind of in the last, degree or so of Gemini before it retrogrades back to Taurus. But Uranus has been in Gemini since July of this year, and this has been obviously bringing up lots of innovations and surprises, I think that's fair to say, to Mercury-ruled areas. So things like ideas, media, technology, information, learning. And I do think I would watch for some sudden breakthroughs in communication. I feel like this is going to be especially connected to social and kind of like partnership relationships. And it can manifest as unexpected alliances, tech-driven collaboration, or flashes of genius when it comes to negotiations. This is really urging us to embrace change in how we kind of connect intellectually to other people. Now, as for the Mercury and Libra transit and how I'm anticipating this is going to be impacting all of us globally, I think the positive is that this can really foster more diplomatic kind of conversations and breakthroughs in international relations. It can be positive for, trade agreements or legal matters, as leaders are likely going to be communicating with more tact and focusing on themes like equality. Now, we might see advancements in some social justice movements. We'll also see art and tech collaborations or media that's emphasizing balance or unity. We might also kind of start moving away from this kind of like polarized, perspective of what's going on with like world or global events. However, we will see some intense aspects like a square to Jupiter in Cancer and opposition to Chiron in Aries. So it is possible that there could be exaggerated debates that are coming up. We might feel like we're over optimistic, during certain periods. We could also find that some of the policies and things that are being proposed are a little overly optimistic. And it could also bring up, this feeling of kind of like leading to an indecision on, big world stages, especially when it comes to economic partnerships. I think that's going to be a big theme. Now, as for personal effects, you really want to look at your chart. Like I said, if you're a Gemini, Virgo, or Libra rising, it's going to be more pertinent to you. The South Node is important. It does impact all of us, but you're going to want to locate where Libra is in your chart. I think personally, many of us are just going to notice that there is like this improved energy revolving around social interactions. And I would start there. I think that if you're wanting to connect with other people, if you want to join new networks, if you want to socialize, send out invitations, if you're wanting to make new friends, this is a wonderful energy to kind of use. And I do think that we might be able to feel like we can make better decisions, or we can be more clear-minded when it comes to decisions and relationships. And there should be like this desire for more intellectual harmony. Rather than just kind of going at each other, we're going to realize that it's kind of like this process of exchange of ideas and learning from one another and learning how to, I think, appropriately and respectfully kind of like debate. Because Libra, I kind of see as like a boxing ring. This is kind of like where we meet other people. And so we do it in a much more graceful fashion. So it means that this could be a time that is really good for mediating conflict. It's also a time that's great for networking or beautifying your communication style. So some of you guys might be kind of like cleaning up, your emails. You might find that you're really focusing on, having much more kind of open, warm, charming conversations with people. And I do think that one of the challenges we might see is that there can be a bit of like procrastination from overthinking and having too many options. That's definitely something I can see with Mercury and Libra. We want to be mindful of where we have a tendency to people please. And as Mercury is first making its entry into Libra, it's coming out of an opposition with Saturn. Obviously, it's kind of baked into the up and coming transits just prior to the solar eclipse, but there's really this sense of us, we've been reflecting on the last couple of weeks, what's not working, right? Like, what do we not have time for? Where are we disorganized? Where are we not getting the odds and ends done? And now as it goes into Libra, it's going to be about learning how to ask for help. So if you feel like, you're wanting to connect with a therapist, if you're wanting to get your partner's opinion, if you're wanting to work with a stylist, or if you're wanting to work with, somebody who can be giving you feedback, this can be a wonderful time to kind of gain perspective from other people, where we have had some blind spots as Mercury's been first in opposition to Saturn and then right off the bat opposing Neptune. Now, I do think it'll lighten the mental energy quite a bit. It will make thoughts, I think, a little bit more relational and a little bit less solo. Now, as for the transits that you guys are going to want to watch for, you can click the link below, go to the description of this video. You will see all of the dates that I'm going to be discussing. I always pick the kind of aspects that I think are going to be the most prominent. Obviously, we might see some more that are going to kind of happen on some days with the moon. But we're going to start first with September 18th, and this is when Mercury first enters Libra. So remember, it'll be there until about October the 6th. I'm very interested on the 18th and the 19th, okay? And you might be astrologically sensitive. You might be feeling it on the 16th. You might feel it all the way through the 20th. I think that Mercury's kind of emergence into the sign is fascinating because it's sitting at a 0-degree point. So whenever we're looking at 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is the world axis points. When planets sit on these degrees, sometimes or generally we see pretty significant things happening. So Saturn has been there recently and just retrograded back into Pisces. Neptune is there right now and it's going to be retrograding back into Pisces, but it's sitting at 0 degrees of Aries. So right off the bat, we see Mercury, the messenger, enter into Libra and oppose Neptune. Well, I'm looking at where's Mars. It's connected to obviously Neptune, and Mars is in Libra. I'm looking at where is Venus, and Venus is in obviously Leo, and they're coming into a trine with one another. So for me, this really encapsulates the entire Mercury in Libra transit. As we look at Venus coming into a trine with Neptune, I really feel like this is showing us, sorry, I just screwed something up. That wasn't a trine, that was an inconjunct. Can I start over? Not completely, just getting into the key aspects. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the key aspects and the meanings. I take you guys through all of the transits and what to kind of watch for. If you want those dates, click the link below in the description, head over there, and you guys can see all of these dates with the most important transits. It's obviously going to start with September 18th, 2025, when Mercury enters Libra. Now, something that interests me, I think, in a very big way is Mercury is going to be sitting at a 0-degree point. So it's 0 degrees, cardinal sign, and then it's opposing Neptune at 0 degrees, Aries. These 0 degrees are the cardinal points. So when planets cross these points, which are associated with the equinoxes and the solstices, sometimes really significant events happen, all right? So I think that's number one. That's kind of like a biggie for me. And 0 degrees always represents this kind of fresh starting point. So there's kind of pros and cons to this. But when I look at Mercury being connected to Venus, and Venus is in Leo, obviously we're going to want to be talking in a much more creative, romantic, inspired, bold, beautiful kind of way. And when we look at Neptune, and Neptune being ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Libra, the same sign that Mercury will be kind of going through, they're in a sextile with one another. So this is inviting us at the start of the Mercury in Libra transit to be open to the idea of connecting, collaborating, feeling inspired, doing more, making more with other people. And it's really going to be about like romance and creativity. Okay, that's the positive. The negative is that very likely we will see sometime, I would say, from the 18th through the 20th, some really significant news. And it may be revolving around children because of Venus's connection to Mercury and Mars's connection to Neptune, like things that we did not know about, younger celebrities, things that we did not know about children's health, things that we did not know about anything connecting to our own romantic partnerships. Just some kind of like information that we're like, oh my gosh, we weren't aware of this because Neptune's going to represent this blind spot. But the positive is going to be the opportunity to be like, okay, we're really focusing on what we love and what we want to create and what actions we're willing to do. And more importantly, who we can really lean or rely on, who's got our backs to see some of this stuff through. So relationships are going to require work. You guys are going to see that be a theme pretty much, I think, all through Libra season. Mars obviously is also in opposition to Chiron. So we're kind of seeing where if there's like too much, not wanting to rock the boat or too much indecisiveness, or if there's even too much conflict in relationships, it could represent something that's very kind of isolating and like divisive, right? So Mercury enters 0 degrees of Libra. The emphasis here is that you're going to see communication is going to shift. And we're going to be focusing more on kind of finding balance in communication. And we might be finding that we're just a little bit more mentally focused on relationships. What we do have, what we don't have, what we want, that can also be a theme that can be coming up as well. And as Mercury opposes Neptune, well, Mercury is what? News, media. It is directly connected to Uranus. It's also connected to the South Node. So we are also going to be hearing about, did you hear the news about what happened with this, partnership or relationship? Or did you hear the news about what new, pending legal case is kind of coming out and how it's impacting media narratives or how it's impacting something revolving around education or schools, as well as health and service because of that connection to Virgo. But the likelihood is with Mercury in opposition to Neptune, there is a possibility or a potential that this information is coming up, but we just can't comprehend it. We're just like, it doesn't make sense. This is confusing. What does it mean? Mercury in opposition to Neptune obviously is, about blurry boundaries. And it could be about having blurry boundaries in ideas. It could mean that we're not reading the details or the fine print. It can also mean that it's bringing up for a lot of us collectively that there could be this idealism that we have, but it's actually turning into deception or confusion in conversations. So it's great for creative inspiration, but it's also, very vague. So I would be very careful with planning, anything connecting to, working relationships or partnerships, signing any important legal documents, anything revolving around financial, agreements and negotiations. And it can also represent this sense of, people suddenly wanting to connect and collaborate and reaching out. But that opposition to Neptune, which is in the sign of the individual, could mean, hey, there are people out there that are checking in on you. They're calling you, they're texting you. Are you failing to get back to them? Are you overwhelmed with life right now and not knowing how to kind of express or talk about, how you're feeling or what you need, right, Neptune? Neptune is retrograde. So I think that this is a powerful window where, if we have been feeling a little isolated or separated, or if we have been, kind of in our bubble or our cocoon, the right people are going to be showing up and kind of checking in on us and being like, hey, what do you need? We may also be getting perspective from people like our partners, our friends, our therapists, who are like, are you aware that you do this? Or, do you want to talk about it? Or, can I give you some perspective? And be able to kind of shine a light in a way that does not feel combative or confrontational about what we may not be so self-aware of, right? And I hope that you guys lean into that because it can actually be incredibly, incredibly insightful. Unfortunately, one of the downsides I've found with Neptune and Aries, and maybe it's because Saturn has been there, it's just been this lack of accountability, right? And I've seen it with everyone. I've seen it with myself. I've seen it in my personal relationships. I've seen it with a lot of my clients. I see it out in the world. And I would use this transit as an opportunity. And I would not just look at where Libra is. I would also look at where Neptune and Aries is, because you're going to have something that is confusing and something that's trying to kind of remedy the situation, or it's trying to kind of assist in some way. Now, not only will Mercury oppose Neptune, but the very next day on the 19th, we are going to also have a flurry of other transits, which in all fairness are kind of happening around the same time as the 18th. It's not exact, but Mercury will begin coming into a trine with Uranus and Gemini, and then it'll begin coming into a trine with Pluto and Aquarius. So this is happening more on the 19th when Mercury hits a 1, okay? So that's going to be later in the day, but this will be the trine. And ones are always Aries degrees, right? It's always about something that's being initiated, or something revolving around military or soldiers, or taking action, or being brave, or something revolving around just something happening with quick speed. And I love this trine. I feel like you guys, I always try to give you lemonade. You'll see a difficult aspect, and I always try to, teach my students and also tell you guys, let's find the way out of it. Let's not get locked into the polarity of the Aries, Libra, kind of back and forth. Let's lean into where some of these planets are going to be for a while. Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for the better part of the next 20 years. Uranus is going to come back into Gemini, next year. And this is one of the first times since we have seen these two planets in this sign make a grand air trine. And with Mercury trining Uranus, okay, this basically means that, there is opportunity for transformative talks. There is opportunity to, send somebody an email, send somebody a text, send them a letter, reach out to them, be there for them, support them. We also see Mercury is going to trine Pluto in Aquarius, which is going to create, I think, powerful insights, innovative ideas, that kind of flow more easily through the trine. This is also about breakthroughs in group dynamics, networking, meetings. And I think that this is going to really bring about a sudden kind of empowerment when it comes to communication. Now, I've talked to you guys a lot about how, during the solar eclipse, which is, in Virgo. So it's ruled by Mercury. We are going to see this trine. It's not going to be exact, but you're going to be seeing it. And just after the eclipse, I feel like is really that seeding moment. So is there going to be some kind of global spreading news that's going to happen on the 19th? Maybe. I bet you dollars to donuts that, with Saturn in opposition to, Mercury a couple days later, and then on the 18th when, Mercury is in Libra and it's opposing Neptune, there are things that are starting to trickle into the news cycles that we're not all hearing. The mainstream media is not going to be talking about. It's going to be stuff that's likely going to be suppressed, or it's going to be hidden, or there's going to be breadcrumbs. But once we get to the 19th on, it's like all hell breaks loose in all of the best ways, by the way. I don't say that in a scary way. And that's because I feel like you can't suppress what is about to come. There are certain conversations, there is certain information, there's going to be certain legal cases or implications revolving around freedom. That's a big theme when you think about Uranus, right? Uranus wants freedom. Uranus in, obviously, Uranus in Gemini is freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of exchange of ideas, freedom of movement. And then we've got Pluto that's in Aquarius, which represents this kind of collective, mass awakening that's going on, and this purging and this purification. And Mercury is going to start bringing up all of these people in the media, all of these people in our lives, in the real world, the conversations we have with our neighbors, with our siblings, with our spouses, the things that we say and we read online that I think could actually spark a viral movement. So I'm very excited to see what happens with this trine. I feel like that's the silver lining. And then as we get into the eclipse, it's going to be closer to 5 degrees by then. But the day after the eclipse on the 22nd, you're going to see the moon come into conjunction with Mercury. Okay, so emotionally, we're thinking about connecting, collaborating with people. Mercury is we want to talk. And this is actually going to trine Uranus and Pluto still. So it's a grand air trine. I think this is the best day for communication. So make a note of September 22nd. This is the day where if you're like, I'm sending out that newsletter, I'm making that big announcement, I'm dropping that big news, I'm telling them, I'm getting married, or there's a new, business partnership, or I have a new announcement, because I feel like this is such an opportune moment to do that. Okay. And we're going to see that there's opportunities to also communicate and connect differently, with our kind of Gemini people. So the people we see every day could also be kind of connected to our siblings. It can be connected to, conversations that we have about what we've learned, where we're traveling, what social things we've got going on. So that's going to be, I think, one of the better turning points of the Mercury Libra transit. Now, you're not going to see much until October the 1st. Mercury is rather unexpected, and that's part of the reason why I said use this day for communication. And then when we get to the 1st of October, Mercury is going to come into a square with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, this is a little tricky, especially if you happen to have anything, I would say, like 20 to about 27 degrees of the cardinal signs. You're going to be affected by some of the Mercury square Jupiter, Mercury opposed Chiron. So you're going to want to be more mindful of like the October, 1st through about the 6th transits, because they become a little bit more tricky on the tail end. So Mercury squares Jupiter, and this is going to be at 22. So this is a Capricorn degree. So this is going to be dealing directly with government. Okay, so it's going to be about government, leadership, rules, older people, senior people, and that square makes me feel like we can be a little too overly enthusiastic. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. Now, something's going down because the moon, the same day, is going to start coming into a conjunction with Pluto. So let me scan ahead a little bit here. So looks like moon is going to square Jupiter exactly right when the moon conjuncts Pluto. So I'm looking at the PM hours. I'm, once again, Central Time, so it's going to be kind of like the early PM hours on the 1st, where that Moon-Pluto conjunction happens. It's going to trine Uranus, which is going to bring up some kind of, media blitz. And then we're going to see Mercury square Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is laws, okay? Jupiter is going to be about laws. And these laws could be regarding, homes, right? Cancer. It could be about new incentives revolving around trying to lend support or news about things going on with the housing industry. Obviously, as many of you guys know, there's been talk about whether or not they're going to declare a housing crisis. I wonder, is this going to be when that starts to kind of make headlines? Obviously, they're trying to kind of incentivize people through potentially lowering rates to get in and want to, buy homes to kind of like boost the market up a little bit. Now, Mercury in Libra, square Jupiter in Cancer brings up the themes of like expansive but tense energy because it's a square. So we have a tendency to be overly optimistic when we see squares to Jupiter. And this could be overly optimistic in our plans, in our relationship and home and family plans. When it comes to, debates with other people, we could be very emotionally reactionary. It's good for big picture thinking, but we want to curb some of our exaggeration to avoid conflicts in home or in nurturing partnerships. Now, Venus is still connected to Mercury, and it's coming up into conjunction with the South Node, so it means that there could be a little bit more of a tendency, the days surrounding around this square, where we're more willing to kind of like voice some of our issues or our concerns about work, about our health, about our habits. Maybe we just feel like we're just bombarded with, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to help, this relative, my partner needs this, my friend needs that. And it just feels like a lot of work. And when I think about where the moon is, because it's connected to Jupiter, it's going to start coming into a trine with the sun and also with Uranus. And then following into the second, it'll also start kind of trining Mercury. So it's going to be, I think, big news revolving around everybody's kind of hopes and feelings about, are we going to start to see some kind of, necessary change? You're going to hear politicians, because Libra can be very much about politicians, so can Aquarius, about this is what we need in this country, right? And this is what we're going to do. And I would say, well, I'll believe some of the things that are promised when I see it. I would not get too overly emotionally engaged or, kind of sold on some of this stuff, because we're going to have to see if it's actually going to, stand some of the tests that'll be coming, in Capricorn and in Aries season in this next year. Watch for just getting overly emotional in your exchanges with other people on this day. All right. And then we're going to see on the 3rd, there will be Mercury in opposition to Chiron. And so this is where, sticks and stones can hurt your, would it break your bones, but words will in fact hurt you. This is the day that's gonna happen. But by the same token, oppositions, they require us to have this back and forth with another person, right? It's relational, and it's very much a theme of the Aries kind of Libra axis. We are one way, we take action, we do something. Who helps us, who supports us, who's with us, who's against us. And this is a day where you not only do want to be mindful of the things that you say, but you also want to be mindful of the ability to build bridges, right? To be able to mend things, to realize and recognize that, we're humans, we're flawed, we're not perfect. And by asking for assistance or asking for help with some of the things that we just can't carry. Once again, Venus is coming into conjunction with the South Node. So it's, hey, that didn't feel good, or that felt very critical, or I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I'm not feeling well. And then you've got Mercury on the other side that's like, do you want to talk about it? Do you need something? How can I help? What can I do? Beautiful trine from the moon in Aquarius that day. So it's not just limited to romantic partners. Moon in Aquarius is your networks, your communities, the friends you make, the friends you have, the people that you want to kind of connect with who have the same kind of hopes and goals and perspectives that you may have as well. So quite positive, to be honest with you guys. But I think that still, with that opposition, just be mindful that this is about healing wounds around self-expression or independence. And we're doing this through having a much more better balanced dialogue. So we can see that sensitive conversations can arise. And it's offering us, I think, a chance to kind of address some of the insecurities in partnerships and work through it. And then finally, we're going to see on the 6th, that Mercury will move into Scorpio. And that'll be another video for another day. But obviously, towards the tail end of the Mercury and Libra transit, Mercury is starting to come into a square with Pluto. So it's almost like once it opposes Chiron, then you start feeling the Pluto square. And that could be bringing up some much more kind of intense kind of conversations. So appropriate, right? Mercury goes into Scorpio, Mars is in Scorpio. So it's definitely going to be, I think, a field day of a transit in October for a lot of people who are doing like investigative type of journalism, or people who are wanting to uncover information, or they're wanting to, get cracking early on the end of the year kind of reports and expenses and budgeting or taxes. But that Mercury square Pluto is going to be pretty intense. We will see a Mars square prior to that as well, actually coming up here pretty soon. So we'll see that after the eclipse. And that may be kind of the precursor for some of the stuff that we're going to see when Mercury squares. But obviously, Mercury going into Scorpio is very different than Libra. I laugh. I was telling a client the other day, I was just like, I was talking about their progressed ascendant. And I was like, I noticed a lot when the progressed Libra ascendant goes into Scorpio, Libra will trade, kind of truth for peace. Scorpio will not. So if we do find that there is too much, understanding or too much forgiveness or too much indecisiveness, or maybe we're just trying to keep the balance, once Mercury goes into Scorpio with a square to Pluto and Mars being there, and Mercury and Mars are actually going to be meeting throughout these transits, we're not going to be able to just maintain certain relationships because we don't want to disrupt the balance, or because we want to save face, or because we want to look good as a part of a partnership. Many of us will find that we're becoming increasingly unable to partner with certain people if we feel like it's not actually a fair exchange, or if they're not actually really bringing something to the table. And we're going to be, I think, a little bit more critical of who we're kind of aligning ourselves with. So we'll talk about that kind of intense, moody shift where we're definitely going to be kind of probing for truth as we get closer to October the 6th. Now, I think to, best work with some of these transits, I think that probably the best thing you can do is practice active listening, right? And I always try to remind myself to do this. I've certainly not been great at least recently, but I do my best. But I think that this is about really listening to other people, right? And I always ask myself, like, okay, are you listening or are you waiting to talk? And I think that's something that can be really beneficial during this particular transit, especially with some oppositions to Saturn and Neptune. And this is about really actively listening and trying to seek like a win-win solution with discussions. We can journal maybe about decision making. We can weigh the pros and the cons fairly. We can surround ourselves with, people who are going to be supportive. Also, this is about creating beautiful environments that help inspire, clear thinking. We can review relationships or contracts that need to be balanced, and even meditate on lingering disputes, because Libra is a mental sign. I would avoid indecisiveness by setting gentle deadlines. I like working with like rose quartz or lapis to kind of enhance more of like this diplomatic energy. And affirmations can also be really beneficial. And I really feel like if you're prone to overthinking, this is just about kind of grounding your energy and, really being kind of present with what's going on in relationship dynamics throughout this time, because there can be important information that's coming from other people as well. So with that being said, I'm going to take you guys through the 12 rising signs. I'm going to talk about where this, Mercury and Libra transit is going to be taking place for all of you. I am a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. And I recommend listening to your rising sign first, because that's going to talk about exactly which house, Mercury and Libra is moving through. And I'll give you some tips and some tricks and what to kind of watch for during that transit. You can listen to your sun and your moon sign as well. It definitely applies. You can even listen to your Mercury sign if that's something that you want to listen to, just to kind of get perspective from where Mercury is moving in accordance to your natal Mercury. All right, so we're going to start with Aries and Aries risings. As you guys know, Mercury is going to be moving through your opposite sign, okay? So you're kind of dealing with other people. 7th house is other people. And Mercury is tied to your 3rd house. So this could be people like your neighbors, your siblings, right? It could be, people who you write letters to, people who you're texting and having kind of meetings with. It could also be discussions revolving around travel. And Mercury is also connected to your 6th house, which is going to be about work, health, service, and anything revolving around like your coworkers, your office space. So off the bat, I think about, as Mercury enters into Libra and it opposes Neptune, you want to watch for who's trying to include you, who's asking you your opinion, who's checking in on you, who's asking you if you're okay, right? Because that's going to be really important, because it's opening up a door of being able to feel supported and having clarity and connections, and also talking about where you see yourself going with another person. So the themes with Mercury in your 7th house obviously are going to be, communication and partnerships, negotiations and relationship, doing business with clients, bringing new clients in. And I do predict for a lot of you guys that you're going to see improved harmony with partners, maybe talking to your siblings a little bit more, planning trips with a spouse. But you do want to watch for kind of indecisive debates. And I would just really use kind of diplomacy in one-on-one talks with other people and try to mediate any conflicts that may potentially arise at work or in regards to scheduling. And also, this is a good time to be kind of checking in with healthcare practitioners or like with a therapist if that's something that you want to do, or if you're searching for one, or if you're looking for an astrologer, right? That can be a really great transit to do some of those things. So hopefully it goes well for you. I hope you enjoy that, Aries. Let me know how it goes. For Taurus and Taurus rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury entering into the sign of Libra. It'll be transiting your natal 6th house. Taurus, Mercury is traditionally associated with your 2nd house, which deals with obviously money, resources, values, self-esteem, and is moving through your 6th, which is going to deal with health, habits, your coworkers, your schedules, your fitness-related things, your pets. And Mercury is also tied to your 6th house, okay, which is about romance, children, creativity, self-expression. So putting it all together, putting, the 2nd and the 5th house lord in the 6th house, my interpretation of this is that this is about having, I think, balanced routines. It's about health talks and really focusing on fair work dynamics. It could also mean this is a time where you're getting your finances organized and like in order, especially if you do like any investing or any trading. You might be talking to your partner about that, or you might be seeking somebody to help you with budgeting. This can also be connected to health of, your health. It can be how you have new health or fitness goals with a partner. It could mean that this is relating to, expenses for health-related themes or childcare. How much time or energy you're investing into creating more time in your schedule for children, for having fun, for dating, for creative projects. And so I do think that there is going to be smoother daily communications. There is also the potential for job negotiations. And I could also see this as a time where if you're really focusing on organizing your finances or your creative projects with input from other people, it's going to be really beneficial for you. Just avoid overthinking any health details. And know that like Mercury being in this house is actually a great place to have it. It's going to be really, I think, beneficial to kind of get into sync or get into balance with the support of another person. So I don't know if that's going to be, somebody at work, if it's going to be a spouse, or if you're just working out with a buddy. But definitely like accountability is going to kind of come from, having somebody support you in making some of these either health or job-related changes. Good luck. All right, we got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? You're going to have Mercury moving through the sign of Libra, another sister air sign. And obviously, Mercury is your chart ruler. So wherever Mercury is where you are. So it's in the 5th house, which is going to be dealing with, play, creative, processes, romantic expression, creative collaborations, children, dating, having fun. I love this transit for you guys. I think that, for the most part, I think you're going to love it. I think you're really going to like it right off the bat because of that grand air trine between Pluto in your 9th and Uranus in your sign. What's interesting is that Mercury is also traditionally associated with your 4th house, which is going to be about like home, family. Obviously, you just recently had an eclipse there, and that can indicate that there are some kind of changes that are kind of brewing on the home front. And that may be brought on by 5th house people. So whether it's a creative project at home, or maybe there's some changes with one of your children if you have kids, maybe kids are somehow impacting what's going on at home. I think you guys are going to like this. I think that this is really good for flirty chats and artistic ideas. This can be a time where, it's about balancing fun, but also considering or incorporating some of your home or family responsibilities with the 4th house tie. I also think that I would just kind of keep in mind, because you are Mercury ruled, Neptune is standing in opposition right off of the bat. So it's going to be a lot of you going, if I can't see my friends, or if I'm feeling like I'm lacking in the friendship department, or if there's people that are far away, I'm focusing on what I can create, what I love, what brings me joy. And other people may not have the time for me, or they may not understand, my relationship or some of my hobbies, but like, this is what makes me happy. And I would lean into that rather than falling into kind of like the opposition trap of Saturn and Neptune. All right, good luck to my Geminis. And express yourself artistically and discuss family matters diplomatically. And watch for some increased romantic opportunities. You might meet someone. Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury's ingress into the sign of Libra. It'll be moving through your natal 4th house. If you happen to be an early degree Cancer or Cancer rising, I'd say like 0 to 2 degrees, the ingress is going to be pretty telling because you're going to see an exact opposition to Neptune, and then stuff that's going to be squaring your placements as well. But in a nutshell, Mercury is tied to your 3rd house, which is more about the mind. It's also about short distance trips, siblings, and communication, as well as the 12th house, which is much more about like your subconscious and anything connecting to your sleep, your bedroom even, and things that are a little bit more kind of private in nature, spiritual even, I would say. And Mercury is going to be moving through your 4th house, which is a house that's very Cancerian in its nature. It's going to be about your roots, your home, your family, property, maybe even the relationship that you have to family or a relationship or somebody that you live with. Now, Mercury's transit through this particular house is really about kind of focusing on harmonious home talks and kind of finding inner balance and inner peace. It could be a time where, you're really reflecting on home and family history or the past. Maybe you're organizing and going through closets and kitchen spaces and things like that. It could also be wonderful for, finding inner balance. So I predict for many of you guys, this is going to be about family negotiations or maybe redecorating ideas. This is about releasing subconscious patterns that you have in regards to your relationship to your home or your family. I would really recommend having open conversations with people. This can be a good transit to be, journaling for mental clarity. Some of you guys are really focusing on seeking fair compromise when it comes to domestic issues. Some of you guys are planning on moving, or there's, talks of changes kind of going on in the home space. So you might be kind of preparing for that. And something that I would really watch for is that you are going to have Mercury later in October come into a square with Jupiter in your sign. So this really kind of symbolizes for many of you guys that there is going to be this back and forth between, what is kind of dragging you or kind of pulling you back home, or what you're having to deal with on a domestic sense, and feeling a little restless, or feeling like you're, wanting to travel, wanting to get out of the house. You're wanting to also organize or clean. Jupiter represents your schedule, so you can be feeling a little overly enthusiastic about just exactly how much stuff you can get done. So you don't want to burn yourself out, too much, and also a little bit too much back and forth with family or domestic stuff can also make you a little restless. So watch for that. Good luck, Cancer. All right, we got Leo and Leo rising. Leo, you're going to experience Mercury transiting through the sign of Libra. It'll be taking place in your natal 3rd house. And this is a house that, Mercury does very well in. It loves to be in this house because of its traditional associations with Gemini. As Mercury goes through your 3rd house, it's going to be kind of, creating a little bit more emphasis on 3rd house things. So like vehicles, contracts, blogging, websites, learning, siblings, short distance trips, gadgets, all of that stuff. And Mercury is tied to your 2nd house of personal values, income, and self-esteem, as well as your 11th house of friends, allies, networks, and goals. So as Mercury moves through the 3rd house, something to think about is you're ruled by the sun, and the sun's moving through the same house as well. So there's definitely going to be a lot of energy on communications, writing, learning, traveling with a partner, having conversations with a partner, having, debates and, discussions revolving around relationships. That can be a theme as well. And I think for many of you guys, it's really about social networking and, trying to kind of balance short trips and or learning. It could also mean that this is a time where, group discussions really thrive. Financial talks with friends can be something that can be going on. You can find that this is a wonderful time to be really networking. And I think you're trying to kind of build community, and you're trying to kind of meet new people. And this is really about, through the conversations you have with other people, really weighing kind of your values and it changing your perspective in some way. So it's obviously friendly with the sign of Leo. Air and fire goes on well together. So I think you guys will do well with some of these transits. And hopefully you guys get like a short distance trip or something out of it. Certainly the social connections and also the powerful kind of communications you can have with relationships as well can be pretty significant. Good luck. Virgo and Virgo rising, you guys are going to experience Mercury's transit through the sign of Libra in your natal second house. Well, Virgo, obviously you get a little bit of a break now that you're going to be seeing, Mercury that's going to be moving into a different sign and kind of taking the pressure off of you after the eclipses and stuff. Your Mercury, so wherever you go is where you are. And the second house is going to be about your values, your expenses, your budget, your style, anything revolving also around just your financial kind of spending power. Now, Mercury also rules your 10th house of career and reputation, okay? So we're taking the themes of work and self and putting into the second house, and there is this grounding out of energy and kind of realizing your worth. It can also be, I think, a really powerful time for you when it comes to fair financial dealings, having better self-worth communication. I do predict that career ideas around money and balanced self-expression is going to be a theme. And I think this is a wonderful time for some Virgo and Virgo risings to negotiate raises or budgets and really affirming your value without feeling like you have to be perfect. Many of you guys are going to be finding with the trine to Uranus that the sudden, changes at work are going to allow you to kind of pivot and go into something that you're going to enjoy more, that you're going to feel like you have support, or there's going to be some kind of artistic side or creative side to making money. And the trine to Pluto is going to be dramatically changing and transforming your daily routine. So I think it's a really much needed kind of power up period, not just financially, but when it comes to feeling confident in how you carry yourself and knowing your worth. Good luck, Virgo. Let me know how that transit goes for you guys. Oh, and one other thing, the fact that it's going to start with an opposition, kind of starts with Saturn, but it's going to start to oppose Neptune. Virgo, you have to be very cautious in dealing with money and resources with other people. You're going to feel like there's some confusion revolving around what is mine and what is ours, or, what did I pay for and what are you contributing, or what is my expense and, what are you lacking when it comes to, kind of feeling like supported. So definitely be careful and cautious with some of those oppositions. And a lot of it can be relationship oriented. So it can be clients, it could be romantic relationships, it could be back and forth over, saving or expenses with a partner. But this is a period where you're really focusing on kind of building up your resources, okay? Good luck. For Libra and Libra rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury transiting your sign. So it will be moving through your first house if you're a Libra rising, or it'll be transiting through Libra for other Libra placements. The first house is what you do first thing in the morning. It's also directly connected to, your appearance, your actions, how you communicate, what you think, what you have to say. So it's almost like you're getting the megaphone here, right? And Mercury is tied to your 9th house of higher education, beliefs, studies, and philosophy. It's also connected to your 12th house, which can be about spirituality, intuition, sleep, and anything dealing with like the subconscious. So as Mercury moves through your first house, Libra, I think that one of the main themes for you is going to be about your personal communication style changing in some way and like embracing a new way of communicating. In theory, the first house is what you do first thing in the morning. So, as a Libra rising, I always give you guys feedback. I've been thinking about this one and I'm like, yeah, it's a really good time to either like be getting up earlier and having a routine, or either working out or journaling or doing some meditation. And that connection to the 12th house is why I say that. Now, what I like is that, like the other air signs, you're going to really benefit from the trine of Pluto and Aquarius, which is really opening up the door for creativity, children, joy, romance, having fun. And it's also trining Uranus in your 9th house, which is going to spark some new ideas when it comes to your beliefs and higher education or travel. I think that for many of you guys, you're going to find that there is going to be this more philosophical balance that's going to come through. You're also going to find that you can be a little bit more charismatic when it comes to how you're presenting yourself. It can also be a time where you can be very creative, especially if you're working with words or anything that you're writing. And it can bring you some really significant spiritual insights. Now, I think the goal here with Mercury in your sign is to speak your truth fairly and explore beliefs through open dialogue. I think what's most challenging is that, Mercury is going to be in direct opposition to Neptune in your opposite sign. So a lot of Libra risings and Libras in general, I think you're going to feel like there's something I want to talk about, or there's someone I want to connect to, or there's something I want to learn, or you're trying to plan a trip, or maybe you're just trying to connect to, a romantic partner or a partnership of some kind, and you're wanting to share something about, ideas, creativity, and beliefs, and you're like, okay, does anybody hear me, or do you not want to go, or are you not responding? So there can be some difficulty in feeling heard and feeling seen. So Libra, I would say lean more into the creative projects, lean more into having some kind of personal practice. It's much more about what you're doing for the sake of you and not seeking recognition from other people as you go through this Mercury transit. Good luck. Scorpio and Scorpio rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury entering into the sign of Libra, going through your natal 12th house of the subconscious, the unseen, the spiritual part of your chart with dreams and your intuition, and also healing or isolating, depending on how you choose to use it. Mercury is tied to your 8th house of joint resources, intimacy, and other people's money, as well as taxes, inheritance, and death-related themes. And it's also connected to your natal 11th house, which is all about your networks, your friends, your goals, your friendships, and all of that fun social stuff. So as Mercury is transiting through your 12th house, it's a little bit more subtle, it's a little bit more quiet. This is a wonderful time, I think, for you to be really taking time to kind of be alone. And whether you're taking a mental break, if you're going to be resting, if you're going to be doing some, healing, kind of practices like therapy or, hands-on healing or some kind of balancing or stretching, that could be good. This could also be a time where you're feeling like, on one hand, there are planets that are still kind of moving through your 11th house, which could be social, but the sun, Mercury, and, other planets like the moon will be moving at some point through your 12th house. And this is that period right before your birthday, if you're a Scorpio sun, and everything's kind of getting cleared out and you're reviewing what's happened in this last year and you're kind of planning what's next. So for Scorpio, I feel like the themes here for you are about intuitive, feelings and thoughts and dreams that are kind of coming up for you. It's also going to be about hidden talks or pillow talk that you're having with a partner. There could be a lot of like subconscious kind of harmony that's kind of coming up for you as well. There could be opportunities to travel and go to a foreign place. It's also, I think for many of you guys going to bring up some deep kind of group revelations or a review of either your friends or your goals, because Mercury is tied to your 11th house, and maybe releasing shared resource tensions because of the tie to your 8th house. And I think this is really about kind of like meditating on partnerships and like trying not to keep secrets, because that can kind of happen here. Now, something to think about is that, when Mercury goes into Libra, it's immediately going to trine Uranus in your 8th house, which means that you might have a conversation or something or a dream about some kind of financial situation that's about to change. And it's also going to come into a trine with Pluto, which is one of your chart rulers. I think it helps maybe kind of ease some of the Mars square Pluto energy that's coming in. But I feel like through a dream or, kind of personal reflection, you're thinking a lot about what you need to change or transform when it comes to your emotions, your family, or, things at home. So a lot of this is going to kind of come up for you intuitively or psychically. So I just want you to kind of be taking that time to rest and recuperate so you can receive the messages as needed. Obviously, the opposition to Neptune is something I would really kind of keep an eye on, because it can be symbolic of you being in a situation where, because you have been lacking, your daily routines, taking care of yourself. Neptune can mean you're not having adequate sleep, you're drinking, you're drugging, there are things that are going on that, or you're overworking, that there is this lack of awareness when it comes to your habits. And it's actually bringing up for you the fact that you're like, yeah, I need more sleep, or I actually feel like I do need to kind of do a detox, or I need to cleanse that out. So definitely watch your physical health, watch your mental health, watch your sleep habits during this transit. For Sag and Sag rising, you guys are going to experience Mercury going through the sign of Libra. This will be moving through your natal 11th house, which is about socializing, friends, networks, goals, your dreams, kind of connecting with your community or your audience. Mercury is tied to your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, and allies, as well as your 10th house of your career, reputation, and your professional status. So something that I think about is, obviously having had the solar eclipse that's very close to your 11th house, it seems to kind of suggest that there's going to be much more of like either a group focus, or there's going to be much more of a focus on some kind of collaboration with others, whether you're planning an event or you're trying to focus more on, working together in teams at work or presentations or projects you're working on. It could also mean that, your partner is somehow playing a role, Mercury, your seventh house lord, in organizing social events or anything kind of connected to do, new business stuff. I do like the fact that it is friendly with Sagittarius. I think that that works for all of the fire signs. And kind of the theme that I'm getting with Mercury going through the 11th house is just that if you're single and you want to meet somebody, you got to go where the people are, because Mercury is going to represent relationships, and it's going to trine Uranus in the 7th house as well. So there could be chance meetings, opportunities for singles to connect with people, change the relationship status. There could also be opportunities for you to kind of get out and about and connect with other people and have fun and do some professional networking and building relationships with others that can support some of the ongoing changes that some of you guys are experiencing with your career. So if you're looking for a job, a friend might come through and say, hey, let's do something together. Or, I've got somebody I want you to meet, or, I've got a client for you, or, hey, do you want to interview for this position? I think the challenge that you're going to be experiencing is both the fact that it's going to oppose Neptune in the 5th house off the bat, which can mean there is a sense of you going, I don't know how to meet someone. I don't know how to find love, or I don't know how to have fun, or I want to do some kind of hobby or, something artistic, but I don't know who to do it with. You will find a class, you'll find a group of friends, you'll find a community. That's what you want to do. And Libra can be the arts. What's also interesting is that you're going to see, like I said, not only Mercury trine Uranus opening up the door for relationships, but also it's trining Pluto in the 3rd. So I think a lot of Sag and Sag risings would really benefit from organizing online events. And whether you're promoting it online and you're hosting them online and you're meeting people, or you're promoting it online and then you're bringing your community together in some way, that can be really beneficial. Where things get a little sticky is going to be in October, when Mercury starts squaring Jupiter, and some of you guys are going to feel like you've bit off more than you can chew, where your social schedule is just like booming, or you've got so much planned or so many kind of events and things that it could be overwhelming. I guess that's not a bad thing. But it could also mean that it's pushing for there to be extra income or resources or things that are coming your way as a result of kind of hosting or creating what can be something that was like a kind of like a labor of love, and then it's turned into like a community organization or an arts fair, or something like that. So it can be beneficial for you financially, but just be mindful of not kind of having too many irons in the fire throughout this transit. And if you're feeling lost and confused, go and be where the people are. That's the best advice I can give you. And some of you guys are going to be like either traveling or doing some online dating. So let me know if you guys meet somebody during this transit. All right, we got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury's transit through the sign of Libra. It's moving through your 10th house, which is connected to your career, reputation, professional status. While Mercury rules the 9th house of travel, belief system, higher education, and philosophy, and the 6th house of health, habits, and routine. Well, Capricorn, Libra season is always like the karmic checkpoint, right? 10 signs away from your sign. It's in your 10th house where it's kind of beaming down on you. And this is really this kind of check-in revolving around your relationship with others, how they're seen, whether that's with your employer, with your significant partner, with, people that you kind of connect and collaborate with, socially. I think that Mercury's transit through here can be incredibly strong when it comes to business, especially if you're like in teaching, education, travel, anything connecting to health. I think that can be beneficial. And, Mercury is just coming out of an opposition with Saturn. So you kind of are on the latter side of, okay, there's already been some hangups with communication or traveling or documents. But Mercury going through the 10th house is strong for business. So meeting people, maybe traveling for work, there being contracts or negotiations, trying to schedule and organize things is very strong. And it's a good time to be really focusing on the relationships that you have with people in a professional way and trying to be diplomatic at work. Now, what's interesting is it is going to oppose Neptune right off the bat. So there is this sense of being like, okay, I got to get my schedule in order. I got to focus on what's important. I got to be out in the world doing things, even though it feels like internally with having had Saturn and Neptune kind of hanging around your fourth house, that you're like, well, I'm still not really sure where I'm going to land in terms of where I'm living, or, emotionally I'm feeling that things are really challenging, or I don't want to feel obligated to, feel stuck at home. So as the sun and Mercury and all these planets are going through your 10th house, it's like game time for your professional life. And I like that this can be really help boosting your career, your finances with trine to Pluto in your second house, and also trines to Uranus in your sixth can radically change or transform your schedule. And it can really put you in a place of meeting the right people at the right time, and feeling like there is something that's really just kind of coming together in a very organic way with your career. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Those of you guys who are writers, or if you're in media, or if you're in teaching or education, health, travel, it's going to be particularly strong for you guys. And I would just say really focus on who you're collaborating with at work. Good luck. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to experience Mercury transiting the sign of Libra in your natal 9th house in a fellow sister air sign. Yes, I think you will love this transit. I think all of the air signs will, but in particular, I think that once again, when we see trines to, Pluto and Uranus, it's always very personal for you, Aquarius. So, Mercury is connected to your 8th house of joint income, whether that's taxes, inheritance, partners' money, investments. And this is also about, psychological things, change and transformation. In the 5th house of romance, intimacy, having fun, creativity, and children. So with Mercury going through the 9th house, your mind is going to be on, where am I going? Where am I traveling to? And I've had a bunch of Aquarius risings that are like going on long car rides, or like they're going on like road trips. It's also, some of you guys are, planning trips, or you're going and checking out, colleges, or you're taking your kids to go on a vacation, or you're talking to them about their education. And that's that tie to the 5th and the 9th. Now, there could be long distance romantic relationships, going on a getaway with your significant other, taking courses or classes when it comes to education, revolving around art, right? Or writing, or anything kind of connecting to like mercurial things. So media, it could also be like kind of mixed media, or if you're doing anything that's connecting to design, like a digital design, that could be something I could see as well. And with Mercury trining Pluto in your 1st house, if you're an Aquarius rising, it's like you're very passionate about, yes, I need to get away, or, oh, I met this person, I'm going to go see them, they're in another location, I'm going to meet them there. And with Mercury trine Uranus, it's a lot of the same thing. It's saying that you're just feeling like taking risks and having fun and being young, and really experiencing life in a way where you're really enjoying yourself, and you're realizing that the bigger picture is how relationships fit into that and who you do life with. The challenge is that, to be fair, Mercury kind of finishes off its Virgo transit in opposition to Saturn. So there is this kind of back and forth with, like, well, I'm going places and I'm going somewhere with someone, but, it's costing me some money. I'm spending some money on accommodations, or on rentals, or, I'm having to book flights and things like that. But I think it's going to be well worth the expenses personally. And it's also going to start to come into an opposition with Neptune. So there could be like this sense of forgetting or missing things. Okay. So it's like, you could leave and forget your wallet. You could forget your, documents. You might feel like, oh my God, the passport's in the safe, like things like that. So be mindful of, when these transits happen, not fully communicating what you need to take with you, or not getting adequate information about coming or going places, and making sure you have all of your documents and your identification, because I think that's something that could be overlooked. Hopefully that's helpful, Aquarius. Let me know what happens. Certainly one of the better horoscopes, I would say, is yours. All right, and we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys are going to experience Mercury's transit through the sign of Libra. It will be moving through your natal 8th house. As you know, Mercury is tied to your 7th house, Virgo, of relationships, partnerships, and others. It's also tied to the 4th house of home, family, and property. So as Mercury is going through the 8th house, well, there is a change or a transformation of how we think or communicate in partnerships. And this can be a time when it can be a little tricky. It could feel like it's either very intense emotionally, or that there is a lot of like psychological stuff that's getting worked out, or there's a lot of financial things that you kind of need to go through. negotiating and going back and forth with other people regarding, what you owe them or what needs to be paid for. And this could be things like, paying off debt or dealing with, spousal support, child support, tax documents, anything like that could be kind of coming up. And there could be conversations regarding or revolving around home and family and kind of like balancing or feeling more so supported when it comes to home or family expenses. So what you'll find is that it's going to be a lot about, I think, other people's money, because Mercury is tied to relationships. There could be some psychological breakthroughs, like if you're going to therapy, you're trying to work through some issues revolving around going through a breakup or, separating from a partner and, how you're feeling about it and kind of feeling like you need support. There can also be secrets or misunderstandings or things that have been concealed that are becoming now a little bit more visible about other people's intentions in relationships or your financial kind of connection. Positive, is that Mercury is going to be trining Uranus. So, having these conversations, while they may be difficult, I think are necessary and important to kind of bring more emotional stability and to kind of smooth over some of the things that might be going on at home. So if it's not relationship oriented, it can be family relationships, uncles, cousins, siblings might be some of the people. And then it's also going to trine Pluto in the 12th house. And so this is really trying to kind of come to terms with, this is ending. Maybe we're dividing or separating assets. It's difficult, but this is the necessary change. And that might mean that it's also connecting to where you live. And then the other thing to think about is that it will start its opposition to Neptune, which is your, modern day ruler. So it's especially important to be really looking through all the details with finances. It does seem to imply that you're being a little bit more cautious, or you're being less likely to want to show up or give somebody something. Or want to be transparent about your financial situation, and that other people might be inquiring or asking questions or requesting information from you about that. So it's like if you're trying to get a loan, right? If you're applying for a mortgage, right? It's going to be like, well, we need to see like proof of your income. Like, give me stuff like that. And you're like, how do I do this? I'm a creative, I'm an artist. And then you will also see that Mercury will come into a square with Jupiter in October, which is your traditional ruler. And this could be good in a romantic sense. Like if you're being very creative, it can be about, money that's potentially coming your way because you made an investment, or you have a creative business, or you took a chance. You might be a little overly enthusiastic about just exactly how successful that might be. And I would also watch for potential changes involving insurance-related matters and how it relates to children. So your kids might have to change insurance if your partner is quitting their job, changing jobs. It might be about how that's impacting, family insurance, or anything kind of connected to children as well. And so there could be lots of talks about, paying for things regarding children or expenses regarding children. And I think that if you don't have kids, it can be kind of bringing up for you where if you're going deeper in a relationship, you're having much more intimate conversations, and it's about helping you feel more secure in that kind of romantic connection. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. All right, well, that is the Mercury in Libra transit in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I look forward to this transit. I think it's going to help all of us kind of open up our minds a little bit and be willing to kind of problem solve and think about how we can kind of work together and support one another. I'm excited to see some of the news headlines and the things that are kind of popping up as well, because I feel like it's going to be exceptionally juicy, even if it takes a couple of days to get it all out in the open. If you guys like this video, please consider sharing it on your socials. Give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment below and let me know what you're anticipating during this Mercury in Libra transit. You can circle back to it too and let me know what happens down the road. I know you guys are pretty good about that when I make predictions about stuff. And do not forget to subscribe so you can see more of my astro-related content. I will be back on Thursday. I'm working on the horoscopes for you guys for October. I can't even believe that. And I look forward to kind of seeing how all this plays out. So enjoy the rest of your guys' morning or your day. I'll catch you guys back here on Thursday, and enjoy the Mercury in Libra transit. Take care.